Hello, everyone. Welcome. I am Savva from Savva Talk Spurs. I am joined by Kuva99, the 99th Kuva in the family. How are you, sir? Are you well?
Yep, good here. Hot again, but not as bad as it has been, is it?
No, I think you always look hot. You've just got a nice face. It's nice to look at.
Warm.
Nice to look at.
Yeah, cheers. I'm good spooning material, mate. Yeah.
Would I be Little Spoon?
No, he wouldn't fit over the belly, mate.
First and foremost, Kuva, welcome to everybody who's in the chat. A little impromptu football discussion on a Friday night. I am in a different room if anyone wants to question why. I am still in my house, don't worry. I'm in a room that is being decorated. So please do not tell me that I need wallpaper because I'm fully aware it's being done. This show, Kuva, is not a Tottenham show. We are going to be looking at that little product called the Premier League and looking at the best 11 that has played in the Premier League. So I gave you about an hour's notice. How did you find this? Was it easy? And have you left out many really good players?
It's impossible. Everybody in the chat will have done this at some point. They're picking out their favourite players over the course of Premiership. It's impossible. You leave out players you absolutely adore because they can't fit into the system, or you end up with like 10 strikers, and then you're thinking, "Oh, I've got to have some defenders." It's impossible, mate. So you have to give yourself strange reasoning for it all.
Well, mate, honestly, and look, this is the beauty of opinions, right? I mean, I was just telling you off Steam. No, it wasn't off of the stream. That I pinged my 11 to one of my good mates, and he was like, "God, I wouldn't have him. God, he was nowhere near good enough." And I'm thinking, "Oh, you well." So look, let's crack on. So I just want to make clear for anyone that's watching, happy Friday to you. Please smash that like button. Please subscribe if you haven't already. I am 100 subscribers away from giving away 2 free tickets for the Spurs game. I need to get there soon because the game is in 2 weeks and 1 day, if I'm not mistaken. Also, if you are in and around the ground on that day, please pop into the number 8 pub. Come and see me. Come and say hello. Please don't come over and bottle me because you don't like my opinions. That wouldn't be fun for any of us. Kuva, let's crack on. So I asked you to pick an 11. We both, just to keep this, to keep it streamlined, to keep it consistent, I asked us to play a 4-3-3. I'm actually a bigger fan of the 4-4-2, but there were just too many players that I would have left out. So
I would have been happy with 4-4-2 as well.
You would have been?
Yeah.
Oh, mate, do you know what? I literally sat there and I went, I did my team and then I did an also ran team. And I'm not sure which one would beat the other, but, you know, it is what it is. So I'm going to start with you, Kuva, and I ask everybody in the chat, tell us your best person, but please don't right now write an 11 out. Don't do that. Just keep to the positions that we're going through. Kuva, I think this is an easy one. For me, this was the no-brainer of any position on the pitch. Who did you go for in goal?
I think the easiest way to say this is anybody that's seen the whole of the Premiership so far, there's only one man can possibly be your top goalkeeper. And before you even showed me what your list would be, I knew it would be. It's Peter Schmeichel, isn't it? Legendary goalkeeper, utterly brilliant, utterly dominant, commanding everything. Absolutely everything you'd ever want in a goalkeeper.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in terms of, you know, because there will be some younger viewers that probably missed Schmeichel at his peak, which was probably 93 through to 99, 2000 would have been that peak, sort of 7 or 8 years for Schmeichel. Obviously part of the team that won the Euro 92 with Denmark, who just completely gone off on a tangent, didn't even qualify for it, did they?
That's right. They came in for, who was it? Somebody got suspended, thrown out for something. I've forgotten who it was now.
Was it Yugoslavia?
Oh, it might have been or is it Bosnia or something like that?
If anyone in the chat knows, tell us. Yeah. So anyway, so Peter Schmeichel, look, played for Man United. What was he so? Why? He is my goalkeeper as well, by the way. Why was Peter Schmeichel so good? And how many points a year do you think Peter Schmeichel made Man United?
God, that's hard. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd say earlier years he gained them far more points because the team was relatively weaker to what it became. He was a cornerstone and one which they built that great United side over the 90s and early 2000s. How many points does he win you in a season? Somebody like that, you're probably looking 10, 12, maybe even 15 points. It's those unbelievable saves that you just wouldn't expect he would make them. And it's the difference between a 1-1 and sneaking a 1-0 win. How many times did United used to do that?
Oh, God, yeah. Absolutely. Is the best way to explain how good he was when he wasn't playing, i.e., once he left Man United, I seem to remember they went through this period of about 5, 6, 7 years of buying, I want to say, Bosnich, Taibbi, Barthez. They just couldn't get it right. And it really, really did show, didn't it, that how good he was once he left.
Yeah, I think the lasting memory I always have of Schmeichel is even when it's one of your own players bursting through on goal, if you got that lucky chance with a 1-on-1, you thought the forward is not the favourite here. If that's what it was like. It's just this immense figure, big hands outstretched. You know, and of course we've seen this with Kasper Schmeichel as well as a trait. Spreading himself. He was so good at that. Just by doing that, the amount of balls that definite saves would just clip off his hand that he hadn't moved to it, just been in the right place. And he'd sort of anticipate where it might go as well. It's absolutely fantastic at it. Somebody was saying about in the chat, Petr Cech was also fantastic. Yeah, quite right, he was. I think Schmeichel just edges it though.
Why?
Petr Cech was more of a little bit more sort of a reflex type goalkeeper for me. Van der Sar, just the immense frame, immense height again. He could cover a lot of ground, make it look easy. You weren't going to, you'd have to, you weren't going to chip him, were you? He's about 9 foot tall. Some great goalkeepers being mentioned, but I think Schmeichel is the one that had that. He had that aura, that presence about him. It almost put fear into the attackers if they're coming up against him.
Yeah, it's one of those things, isn't it, where lots of people, I knew the moment we'd said Schmeichel, I knew the names that were going to be coming in the chat were going to be Van der Sar, it was going to be Petr Cech. Is there anybody else that you would give an honourable mention to in goal? Maybe a Seaman, someone like that? Anybody throughout the years who you think, God, that was a really good keeper that was probably underrated?
Unfortunately, yeah, you just mentioned one, Seaman. He was such a absolutely reliable keeper. Always in the right place, organised the defence well, always relaxed. He was calm. Nothing was too difficult. He would just deal with it comfortably. Made it look easy. Any goalkeeper that just makes it look easy, you know that is a quality goalkeeper.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'll tell you what was interesting for me before we move on to our right back was I was trying to think from the last sort of 5-10 years, other than Cech, who would fall into that, I feel like the standard of keepers has drastically gone downhill. I mean, even now, when people tell me the best goalkeepers are Alisson and Edison and De Gea, I don't put these guys anywhere near the likes of Van der Sar, Cech, Schmeichel. Am I being harsh? Or bless you?
Excuse me. Possibly being a bit harsh. I mean, Edison and Alisson, they're just fantastic goalkeepers in their own right. But would you say they've got the same kind of that dominant presence that the likes of Schmeichel had. I wouldn't. I think Schmeichel is a scary lump coming at you as a goalkeeper. That puts you second guess yourself as a forward when you've got to deal with a goalkeeper like that. De Gea, very talented goalkeeper, but he lost his way for quite a while, didn't he? He was having some shockers for a long time.
Yeah, this is the thing. See, I never remember. Now, look, some people will call this nostalgic or whatever. I never remember with Cech, with Van der Sar, with Schmeichel. I don't remember them having seasons where people have gone, oh, well, they've been off this year. He's not been his usual self. He's made mistakes. I'm not saying those guys never made mistakes, but I don't ever remember a kind of spate of mistakes in the same period. Whereas De Gea, I think, was class this season, just gone. The year before was a bit iffy. But for me, Kuva, it's the stature. I mean, someone like De Gea, he doesn't look commanding. You know, the way a Buffon did, or a Casillas, you know, a Pagliuca. Sorry, and I'm going. Okay.
You really are, mate. Absolutely. You also have to look at the just general level of consistency. So one thing you want from your goalkeeper, even if he's doing just a 7 out of 10 every single week, you depend on that 7 out of 10. The likes of Schmeichel take that as his baseline, and then he produces 10 out of 10 some weeks.
Absolutely.
Whereas you look at De Gea, he does some 10 out of 10s, but he can also drop down and have a shocker, have a 3 out of 10 sometimes. Right. He's erratic. And that is not a good trait for a goalkeeper. It's better to have that. Well, that's why David Seaman gets in the mention as well. He was just Mr. Dependable at the back there. You always knew what you got with him every single game.
Absolutely.
That's the big difference. That's the big difference for me.
Okay, so a couple of mentions before we move on. Pepe Reina's being talked about, who for me was a very good keeper. I feel like Pepe Reina was just a solid keeper, right? I don't ever remember him being clumsy, but I don't know. There's something about him that, again, we keep coming back to that word aura. I just don't know whether or not he had that, but he was a very good goalkeeper. And the other one, Jens Lehmann. Now, Jens Lehmann's a really interesting one because obviously I hope I'm right. He was the goalkeeper for the Invincibles. Is that right?
We'll ignore that.
But I mean, you know, if somebody will, I always say this, Kuva, the beauty of going live with so many people watching is somebody will tell me if I say something wrong. If Lehmann was the goalkeeper for the Invincibles, that's a good shout, isn't it? That you must be doing something right to not lose a game in goal, right?
Yeah, you get totally lucky. I'm not giving them any credit for that at all.
Come on, take your Spurs hat off. It's going to be all right.
He did well in a great Arsenal team. Unfortunately, they were a great team, but I wouldn't have said it's because of the goalkeeper. It's more the rest of the team. Mm-hmm. They had a phenomenal midfield. Unfortunately for us, Judas doing really well. You could argue he had a bigger impact on that team than any goalkeeper did.
Wait till you hear one of my two centre backs if you want to talk about Judas.
Yeah, I've got him mentioned in my list. You can't ignore it. If you're going to be impartial, you have to give some credit to people like that, even when you hate them.
It's tough, isn't it? Just to quickly, please can I ask, I know it's Friday evening, most people are probably down the pub, but we're having a laugh. Please keep hitting the like button. And as I said, next week I will be giving away 2 tickets for Tottenham versus Southampton. John Burridge, Ian, the Mad Darlow fan. Where did you drag that name up from? One of my personal favourites was this guy, and I'm not talking Friedel. So I thought Friedel was a good keeper, but given for someone that was not the tallest, I thought he was a really good goalkeeper for multiple teams. Yeah,
again, it's that word consistency. You always got a good game with Shay Given. He was totally reliable. You trust him any situation. That's all you can really say for him. Made some really, really shockingly bad defences seem to get by on many occasions. He's also that kind of goalkeeper that could spend a career in struggling teams at the foot of the table and help them avoid relegation. season after season. You can't I don't think you can really overrate that sort of performance when you're up against it like that, and your goalkeeper saves you from the drop. It's a fantastic performance. He'll do it week in, week out. So yeah, I could see him. He's worth a shout, definitely.
Perfect. I'm going to ask you about one more keeper, but just before we do, Wayne Holland, good friend of mine up there in Leicester. Hope you are well, buddy. Mate, what's going on with your team? When are you going to buy someone? Because the season starts in 2 days, and Brendan Rodgers said live on Sky about 3 months ago that you were going to have a rebuild this summer. So chop, Wayne, get your boys firing. Thank you very much. Half of that money, as always, does go to the British Heart Foundation. So if anyone else does want to contribute to the British Heart Foundation, please put in a super chat or a super sticker. Last keeper I want to mention has to be our very own Hugo Lloris. Why have we not mentioned him until this moment? Why have neither of us gone, Hugo?
I think it comes back to our earlier traits, and when we talked about aura. Hugo does not have that commanding presence of many other goalkeepers. Immensely talented goalkeeper, great shot stopper, and he's been a role model for the majority of his Spurs career. But I don't think I'll elevate him into the absolute elite class of the likes of Schmeichel. He's in a level just below that. He's a bloody good goalkeeper, definitely. And it's been a joy having him at the club, but you've got to make some sort of differential between great and legendary, really, haven't you? And for me, Schmeichel's legendary.
Yeah, absolutely. Top keeper. Let's move on then. So we're playing a flat back four. We're not doing any of this revolutionary three at the back, wing back stuff. Right back. Who have you put as your right back? And in the chat, before we get Coover to answer, this one for me it gets more difficult, I think, as we go throughout the team. Who are you chucking in there as your best right backs, guys? Coover, if you say Emerson Royal, we're going to fall out. Who is the best right back from the Premier League era, in your opinion?
Don't worry, I've got him at centre back.
Brilliant.
No, this was a tough one because, again, I had a feeling I'd know who yours was going to be. So I've gone for different ones just for add a bit of flavour to it. Okay. And I think my first choice is going to... Wow, it was such a difficult one. I'm sort of tied between two. One, because I think he's a better player, and that is Ivanovic. Cool. I think's been absolutely stupendously good right back. So many goals throughout his career from right back. It was absolutely ridiculous how good he was going forward. The other one is a certain Gary Neville. And it's not because I rated him the best player out of all the options there. It's just the way he fitted into that Manchester United team. His link up with Beckham and everything, the understanding they forged. You cannot dismiss his haul of medals, which is insane. Was it 22 medals or something stupid? It was
wasn't it something like 11 Premier Leagues or 10 Premier? I mean, Gary Neville's a really interesting one. So when I first wrote down my team, I just wrote Neville. I don't know why. My brain, maybe it's because he's on TV every God-given minute, but I automatically went to Neville.
I'll tell you why.
Go on.
It's because you started off with Schmeichel.
Right, possibly, Schmeichel, Neville. And in the middle, I've got Pallister Bruce and Dennis Irwin. So I didn't go with Neville. I went with Mr. Carl Walker. Yeah. Now, as I said, this was a really tough one because lots of the names being mentioned I was toying with. So I was looking at Ivanovic. Zabaleta was a very good right back. I didn't toy with this name, by the way. I didn't quite go for Alan Hutton. The reason I went for Walker was nothing goes past him. Now, people will go, that's just pace. But I just think if you're a winger, you do not want to be up against Carl Walker because even if you beat him with a bit of skill, he always gets back and wins the ball. You don't see him being skinned. And for me, I'm seeing people like Trent Alexander being put in the comments and Reece James. For me, these guys are very good going that way. But in a right back, in a team that wins I want them stopping forwards. Would there be any merit to what I'm saying? Is Walker a silly shout, or is there merit in that?
No, he's got. But as well as that recovery pace, the thing that gets overlooked too easily, I think, is just how powerful he is.
Yeah.
You cannot shrug him off very easily. Maybe if you're somebody like Drogba, he might have managed it, but at some point. But most people, with Kyle Walker's coming at you're going to get knocked off the ball. He's going away with it. No doubt about it. You've got to completely take him out of the game through passing most of the time. No, I can't think of anybody that's naturally quicker than him. Really, very few that would even be close. So yeah, he's definitely a shout, and he was good. He became good going forward. I'd never rated his skill set, but he had the sense enough to be able to beat his man and then just put the ball into a danger area fairly consistently. And the other players just made the most of that rather than him picking the pinpoint accuracy with passes. But having said that, he got better at that when he went to City as well. And he started looking like a better footballer than ever.
I read something from him maybe 2 years back, and he said that what Guardiola had done for him as a player was amazing. He said it's not just about joining a good team. He said Guardiola works with every player one-to-one, and you can see that in Walker's game. I feel like he's just getting better and better, and in a position where England are quite well off, because we are quite well off in that area with Reece James, with Trent Alexander-Arnold, with Walker, with, I want to say, I feel like I'm missing a couple of right backs there, but Walker for me is the one that is always trusted, always trusted, because nothing goes past him. Now, talk to me then. You said you went for, did you go for Ivanovic or Neville?
I'm going for Ivanovic just because the sheer quantity of important goals he would come up with, it was an insane amount. He was well into the 20s over his career, which is a lot for a fullback at that point. I don't know how many goals he got. I should have looked that one up, really. But he seemed to be always there in the right place, both ends of the pitch. Really good in the air, could cross a ball as well as score goals himself. He just had it all. He really did. It was surprising at just how good he was going forward.
Yeah.
At times, you'd argue whether he was really a right back at all and just a right winger. For me, he just pure skill levels. He edged a few out. I mean, I'll give honourable mentions. That's funny enough to another bloody Chelsea player, but I used to love Dan Petrescu.
Oh, good player.
Fantastic fullback. Also, our own Stephen Carr.
Oh, my lord!
What an attacking fullback that was. That before wing backs were fashionable. He had a bag full of goals in him and assists. What great player. When we lost Judas, I think I've said this one on the show before. I had a conversation with one of my friends in the pub, and I just said, you know what? It's better Judas goes than Stephen Carr goes, because Stephen Carr was like the epitome of what our style of football was at the time. Really gung-ho attacking style, and he would have been a bigger loss. Pity what he decided to do later on, eh?
Listen, again, and I tell you what, and somebody else has mentioned Lauren as well. What I'm seeing here, when you look at Walker, when you look at Ivanovic, Zabaleta, Lauren, power, very powerful. Is there anybody else? People in the chat tell me, is there anybody else that stands out as having been a quality right back from all these Chelsea teams, City teams, the Liverpool teams? I don't particularly think, other than Walker, we've had many great right backs other than Carr. I don't think we've had any others in the Premier League era where I go, yeah, he's quality. But there must have been a few. So, give us some names. I'm gonna come to you now and let us know in the chat. I'm gonna go to left back.
I could really cheat there and put oh, well, we'll do this for both left back and right back then. I'm just going to go straight on with Dennis Irwin.
Are you going in with him?
Yeah.
Is he your left back?
Yeah. Totally dependable. Everything that we said about was good about the goalkeeper is good about Dennis Irwin on the pitch, on outfield player.
Mm.
He would never let the team down, ever. Play left back, right back, whatever
Right.
you like. You always got a top quality performance. Consummate professional, role model to everybody. God, I wish we'd had him.
Yeah. I've got in my head, and I might be wrong because I'm going back to the late 80s, I think, when Man United signed him. I want to say he came from Oldham.
I think
Would
he
I
did,
be
yes.
making that up?
No, he did. He did come from Oldham. I'm sure of it.
I always remember, as you said, it was the versatility to play right back, left back. He was always in the team, week in, week out. He was in the team. Scored some very good free kicks as well. Quiet, got on with it. Not many fullbacks like that anymore. Do you know what I mean? I mean, you could say Cancelo's quite versatile, can play both positions. But he was just phenomenal, wasn't he, Dennis Irwin?
Different sort of player, isn't it? Because Dennis Irwin, like I said, that's the comparison with a goalkeeper, like a Seaman or whatever. That one quality they did have was calm it down. It's all under control.
Right.
You just got that feeling with him in every game. It's all the donkey work easily dealt with. Simple pass out to get the attack going. He just did everything just as it should have been done.
Do you know what, Coover? I think one of the things you've mentioned a few times, which is when I'm asked about is this player world class? Is that player world class? And you don't rate this player. I love consistency. You know, I'm not one of those. My personality isn't such that I see someone have 5 good games and label them as the next Maradona or the next Rio Ferdinand. Do you know what I mean? But the 3 players I want to mention was going to be Dennis Irwin for consistency. And then I was struggling between 2 players. I went for Ashley Cole.
Yeah.
But my other choice would have been Patrice Evra,
who
I just thought was just exceptional at fullback. Yeah. Ashley Cole, for me, I know he was from the Gunners. You know, he did it at 2 top teams. He did it for Arsenal when they were brilliant. He did it for Chelsea for donkey's years. I think he won something like 7 FA Cups, Premier Leagues. At the time, I don't think another left back in the country was touching him. Ashley Cole, fair enough. Would you have him in if Irwin got injured?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I picked mine as to contrast with the team I knew you were picking. Because, for me, he would be my first choice left back. Just because he just that explosive pace and power, eye for a goal, create goals, had it all really. If anything, you'd say the defensive side of his game was the weakest part, but going forward, unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable for England as well. Some games, it's one of my it's a little anecdote I brought up a while ago. I can't remember who the game was against, but he played for England and he put in this absolute barnstorming performance. And I was like thinking, Jesus Christ, this bloke's good. Why didn't he play for us? And then I listened to Rodney Marsh in the studio afterwards, and he's drooling over his performance, saying how good it is. Yeah. And I just thought, he sees what I'm saying. It was great. I went to bed, got up the next morning, look at the papers, and then Cole shocker. And it's like, how can you possibly be seeing the same game? And then it dawned on me, wing-backs, they're a funny breed because if people don't see them as a defensive player, they might absolutely slate them. If they look at just the attacking side, they might think he's brilliant. And he's one of them kind of players for me. I think that's why I went for Irwin in the end, because he's just that. You can't argue with what Dennis Irwin is. It's a level of consistency that you just don't touch. Cole's the wild man more than anything.
Yeah. Before we look at some honourable mentions, just quickly, I would kindly ask, I am 7 subscribers away from 1,400 in 11 weeks. So I'm really, really happy with that. If anybody is in the chat that hasn't subscribed, please do. It really does help. Just a quick one. We've got, Carl said world class is well overused. Absolutely. Carl, I am the sort of person, I don't buy into this, that there's the best 5 players in every position in the world are world class. I'm not one of those. I'm hard to please. This guy certainly wasn't world class. Timothy Atuga,
Yeah,
although
that goal, though.
That goal I was about to say was Newcastle.
Yeah, I think it was.
Was it
I think
Newcastle?
it was. And scored from North London.
He was great. Eric Edmond. Tell us in the chat any honorary mentions. Just quickly, yes, Kenny Sampson was before the Premier League era. Fun fact, it's not fun at all. It's not really a fact. I went to primary school with his daughter, Katie. Yeah, there you go. I told you it wasn't fun or really a fact. But I just thought I'd let you know that.
He's another one of those players, I hate to admit it, but he was bloody good.
He was very good for England and for Arsenal, right?
Yeah.
Oh, Kenny Sansom. Who are we missing out? Which left backs throughout the Premier League era? You've had Yonana Risa, Stuart Pearce. Dare I say Julian Dix?
No.
All right, I don't. All right.
No, I think bloody bell end.
Julian Dix. Oh, didn't West Ham at one point have Dix and Ruddock in the same? Oh wow!
For sheer banter, I mean, you would have liked to have seen that at your club, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Real, yeah.
THFC has said, did him and No Pamero make you wet too? No Pamero with the biggest calves I think I've ever seen on a footballer. That's what I remember from No Pamero. Eric Edmond, again, that goal. Liverpool.
Yeah.
Agree, Tom 81 world class. He's definitely used too easily. There we go.
Slightly different take on world class for me. I think you can have plenty of world class players, but there's very few people you can call genius.
Yeah, fair enough. I think it's one of those things that it's like if I always use I'm not going to get into this debate, but I always say, like, for me, Heung-min Son isn't world class. People always have a go at me. Listen, it's cool. I'm not saying anyone else shouldn't think anybody is world class, but for me, I put very few players into my world class category. Anyway, before we get into a debate about Heung-min Son, I know I'm going to get crucified for that one. Let's move. If I can't think of any more left backs, let's go. Wayne Bridge, as I mentioned, he was dependable. Lasso,
no.
Frano Benali.
Brady Benali, top bloke. I'll give him that. You'd see that all about his charity work since he's finished playing, and does all these constant walks all over the place. Raises tons of money.
Yeah.
Really
nice guy. Nice guy. Whenever I've seen him being interviewed, etc. One honourable mention I will give to a left back that wasn't world class by any stretch of the imagination was our very own Justin Edinburgh. R.I.P. Justin. And Justin Edinburgh is, of course, in the last 30 years, what's he done that no other Spurs player has done in the last 30 years?
Oh, could it be win an FA Cup?
He's the only player in the last 30 years to win 2 trophies as a Tottenham player. It's mad. You think about that. That's how starved of success we have been. He was in the 91 FA Cup team and the 99 League Cup team.
It's a good show. I didn't think he was still playing in the 99 one. Yeah. That was a bit of a forgettable final, that one, to be fair.
What, the 99?
Yeah.
Oh God, yeah, I was there. It was dreadful. It was dreadful. It was dreadful, and then we're all thinking, "Oh, this is going to extra time," and then you can still picture. I can still picture Stefan Everson kind of, I wouldn't say motoring down the wing, but kind of bustling. Bustling. The ball went up, and Alan Nielsen, who I've actually interviewed, scoring a goal. But we digress. Kuva, this next position on the pitch, obviously we're picking 2 centre-backs. This, for me, was just so goddamn difficult. And whatever 2 we pick, I pick, you pick, everyone's going to have their own 2 that they want to chuck in there, right? So you've seen my team. I don't know yours. Give me your first centre-back.
I can't. I just can't. It's
Come
like
on.
that. I'm gonna have to go with. I hate it, John Terry. John Terry. No, I'm not. I can't. I've got to go with a more footballing choice. I'll go for Marcel Desailly.
Oh, oh. Do you know what, Kuba? It's funny when I have this chat with people about centre backs. People always overlook Marcel Desailly. You hear all the same 5 or 6 names. He is always overlooked.
Yeah.
Is it just because he was that good? He made it look so easy. People forgot that he was that good, or what is it about this guy?
I suppose it's like being in that Chelsea side at that point. The focus was on other areas of the team a lot of the time. So yeah, I can't. I don't know why, mate. I think it's just absolutely phenomenal player, absolute beast at the back, so powerful. He timed everything perfectly, always in the right place. Everything you could ask for on a centre back in one package is just brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, he was. I mean, look, he did it for years as well for France, for Milan. I mean, he could play holding midfield. He could play centre back. He, sweeper. Just one of those defenders. I don't think there's many of them about now. You know, so many defenders now. I have like heart in mouth moments because they're either rash or they're not good at this. They're not good at that. Desailly just seemed to like it was his game. You know, he dictated whether the striker went in behind him or in front. He decided whether he wanted to go and attack the ball or sit off and let the striker win. He was just phenomenal, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It just looked easy, didn't it?
Yeah.
Something that takes an immense amount of strength and timing and reading of the game, and he's just done it blink of an eye, no problem.
Yeah.
You just weren't getting anywhere past him.
No. And again, another one, physical, very physical, but in his own, not overly, but a powerful man to get past, right?
Yeah.
Who are you playing alongside Marcel Desailly?
Oh, I'm gonna have to rule out a couple for obvious reasons first. I've just ruled out John Terry because I want him in because he's like the natural born leader. He's the sort of club captain every team would want. As a bloke, absolutely hate him. But for what he did on a football pitch, he was an amazing player. Same reason I'd give an honourable mention to Tony Adams. Mr. Arsenal, but a bloody good defender for him. Really was. We always slated him off because he was Arsenal, but I mean, he's one of those ones. If he played for your own team, you'd really appreciate him.
There you go. Do not say his name. Sorry.
Yeah, that one. We won't say his name, but you know who and you know why, and you know he was bloody great for us.
Is he your second centre back?
No, I'm going to have to rule him out as well.
Let me ask you a question then. I'll say his name. Look, I'm an adult. I can say it. Sol Campbell. Sol Campbell, right? If Sol Campbell hadn't done what he done, how many more people do you think would have him in these conversations would go, oh, Campbell, easy?
We'd be talking about Campbell and Ledley King as greatest centre-back pairing ever.
Right.
We would, wouldn't we?
Of course we would. He was. Look, let's remove our Tottenham hats at the moment, right? He was, for a period of time, the best centre-back in this country. He was. It's everything else about him was dreadful as a human being. His personality, I just can't stand the bloke. But as a footballer, Kuva, there's not many better.
Thus, it's difficult to remove the rose-tinted glasses, though, isn't it? Of
course it is. Of course it is.
This is a good shout as well. Not so much the spelling of him, but the spelling of the name. But I know who you mean. Richard Goff. Although you'd say his peak years were probably outside the Premiership when he went to Rangers from us. But when we only had him for that one season, well, one and a bit seasons after signing him from Dundee United, and his partnership with Gary Mabbutt was absolutely sensational at the back. He's well worth a shout. Really talented footballer.
Yeah,
commanding
very
centre
good.
back as well.
Very good. I mean, you haven't given me your second centre back, just so you know.
Right. I'm just going to have to go with one who's just utterly class as a footballer, really cultured footballer, and it's got to be Rio Ferdinand. But then I just noticed he's on your list, so I'll have to give you an alternative. The only alternative for him, then I'll go Vincent Kompany.
Yeah, I mean, look, just so everyone knows. Then, so your two are going to be Kompany and Desailly. My two are Stam and Rio Ferdinand. But literally, I sat there going, Stam, Vidic, Ferdinand, Terry, Campbell, Desailly, Kompany, Van Dijk. I was just sitting there going, this is impossible, but I'd take any two from that list. Right? Look, let's talk Rio Ferdinand. We've both said about him. I feel like when he was growing up, I remember at 18, 19, everyone was talking about how good he was, but there were so many mistakes in him, which is natural for someone of that age going to play in centre-back, getting mistakes. When he cut those mistakes out, he was just, and this phrase is used a lot, he was a Rolls Royce. Just read the game beautifully. You never really saw him lunging in because it was like Maldini in that sense, that not as good as Maldini, but like Maldini, that if you have to make the tackle, you've done something wrong. What do you remember about Rio as a player?
Well, you said you've used the right phrase, Rolls Royce. For me, it's the first. Well, not the first, but it's one of the few times you'd look at a player in the central defensive area and think he's just going to glide up the pitch with this ball effortlessly, turning defence into attack himself. It's much like we're lauding Bastoni for. It's the same sort of usage from Rio Ferdinand. He could pick a pass. He was great tackler, great in the air, leadership qualities. Just such a good footballer. He really was. He, passing, tackling, everything immaculately done. At his peak, is easily one of the best in Europe, if not the world. Easily.
Yeah. He was all sorts of ridiculously good, wasn't he? Like he was just
really was.
And then when we look at, we'll talk about Jaap Stam in a minute, who I put in, but I suppose honourable mentions would go Ricardo Carvalho at Chelsea, who complemented John Terry superbly.
Certainly did.
Some people have said Laurent Blanc. Just trying to think. Obviously,
we don't need to talk about Ledley, do we? I mean, everybody knows how good he is.
Yeah, Ledley King, Kolo Touré. I don't think gets talked about enough. I thought he was a very good centre back.
He was.
I mean, where would you put? Here you go. Before we talk about Jaap Stam, all these centre backs we're talking about, where would you rank Van Dijk against them? Always difficult in different eras, but where would you put him? Is he in that conversation for you for the top two?
Not at the moment, but I think he will be. I think.
Why not at the moment?
I'll just think some of these other players have been, done it over a longer period of time. So I think Van Dijk has shown he's like the best in the business at the moment. When a bit later in his career, when he's done 7 or 8 seasons of doing that, you'd start saying he's probably one of the best that's ever been in.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, look, Van Dijk's got it all, right? But there are sometimes, I think, we're so quick to want people to be elite rather than actually saying, do you know what? For 7 or 8 years, this person dominated. And he's well on his way. Don't get me wrong. I mean, his last 3 or 4 years at Liverpool, he's been, obviously, apart from the one where he was injured. And again, look what that did to them. But he's got it all, hasn't he? The reading of the game, pace, power, in the air, score some goals. Just a physical specimen, without being rude, isn't he? He's a lump of a man in a good way.
Yeah, absolutely. But like you said, we're racking our brains on that because the list was so big for centre backs.
Oh, well, even when I look at people like Bruce, Pallister, Skirtle, Carragher, Sami Hyypiä. I mean, there's been some fantastic players that have come over. Noordin Nabet.
Stuart Nethercott.
Stuart Nethercott, Anthony Gardner. There's been some wonderful centre halves down the years. Another RIP to Dean Richards, sadly passed away.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I went for Stam, and look, I was torn between Vidic and Stam. Stam just looked scary before he'd even started defending. He just looked scary. He was so hard, would take anybody on in a one-on-one physical battle, cultured on the ball. And something that I think a lot of defenders don't like now, and this is going to sound really weird, but he liked defending. Do you know what I mean? Like I feel with a lot of defenders now, like, and this is like, when I'm not having a go, but when I look at players like Eric Dyer, I feel like
Knew you were going to mention him.
But I feel like a good player, but not that love of defending. You know, that you'll have to go through me to get to goal. You know, turning backs, things like that. And a lot of centre backs now, for me, I feel like that. Just before we move on to centre backs, can you think of anybody else? Anybody throughout the years who deserves a mention? Keown? Bold?
Nah, not well. Keown maybe. I think he's a bit limited with his all-round game, but as an out-and-out defender, he was right up there, wasn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Graham Roberts wasn't bad, but didn't play in the Premier League era.
That's true. Oh yeah, I'll fit him in my team somehow, and no matter what.
Yeah, absolutely. He was a class player. I can't think of anyone else. This is a big shout. The only one better than Van Dijk is Cannavaro. I feel like we've just mentioned maybe 7 or 8 that are better than Van Dijk, but time will tell, right?
Yeah, Van Dijk, without question, is going to be up there in that conversation for a long, long time to come.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no problem.
And talk just quickly before we move into the midfield area. Talk to me about your choice. I mean, Vincent Kompany gets overlooked when talking about this, doesn't he? Why have you put him in there?
He was the basically he was the captain of Manchester City. He was the driving force behind their rise to prominence. He did everything, important goals when needed. Not too many, but just occasionally some very well known ones. And he was just another one of these players. Just read the game well, physical, very very strong player.
Yeah,
won everything in the air, won everything on the ground. I mean, he's just a great defender, and he could play football. He's much underrated with his It was only really a short passing game mostly, but he did it well. I mean, you play for Manchester City, you only need a short passing game. Mm-hmm. So did everything.
Well, and completely off topic. Obviously now down at Burnley manager. It will be interesting for me because Burnley. I'm completely going off topic, but still staying on topic. For the last 5-6 years, their centre back partnership has been Tarkowski and me. Both have gone. Right, so it's going to be really interesting to find out: does Kompany bring in 2 more of that ilk, or does he bring in more of the ilk that he himself was? What do you reckon?
He'll just dust his boots off, won't he?
He'd be able to do it, wouldn't he?
He'd probably fit in a lot of teams even now. I think he's going to look for. He's used to playing in teams with really good footballers. He's going to want football inside. I think they'll be looking at proper passers of the ball, read the game well. I don't think it's going to be the likes of Tarkowski and me anymore. It's he might go a bit continental. Some promising young players. He'll have plenty of contacts all over Europe, especially Belgium, and they're always a hotbed for young talented players coming through.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Yeah, I think could be quite exciting for him actually.
Yeah, I wish him well. I mean, at the moment, what we're witnessing is their team being absolutely ripped apart. Right, they've lost me, Collins, and Tarkowski. their three centre backs. There's talks of Maxwell Cornet leaving. There's talk of Dwight McNeil going to either West Ham or Palace. It's going to be tough for them. But anyway, moving back, this question here from Foggy Foam: Ramos is better than Virgil van Dijk. Where do you all put him? Obviously, Ramos hasn't played in the Premier League, but if this discussion was not just the Premier League, how good is Ramos for you?
Oh God, I love him. I absolutely adore the bloke. It's just absolute liability and genius menace at both ends of the pitch. I don't care about all the red cards. His shithousery is legendary. He affects games and the biggest of games as well. Doesn't matter who the opposition is. He can turn up and grab you a goal when your team's struggling. And he can smash the hell out of anybody around him as well. And he's a much, much more skillful footballer than he ever gets credit for. He's a good passer of the ball, but it's his physical dominance of everybody. It's just like, we talk about auras. It's like half the pitch is his at all times. It's
so Cooper, would you disagree with that comment that's on the screen?
Yeah, I'll disagree with that. Yeah. I think he can be a liability at times, but he makes up with it because everybody's just shit scared of him.
Look, with Ramos, you've got to take the rough with the smooth, right? You buy him, you know he's going to be suspended for about 8 games a season. But to say he can't defend when he's won, 5 or 6 Champions Leagues with Real Madrid, he won everything with Spain. I don't think you do all that if you can't defend. But each to their own. Here's an interesting one. Sorry, not this one. This is a no-brainer. Yeah, Maldini for me better than anyone we've mentioned so far.
The only ones I compare Maldini with will be Baresi and Nesta. It's always going to be Italians, isn't it? Let's face it.
Well, they live for defending, don't they? Even when
Bagomi,
Costa Curta,
yeah, endless supply of them.
They just love defending. Let's move to the midfield just quickly here. Super Jan Vertonghen, Toby Alderweireld, 2 honourable mentions. Nathan Collins, young Irish defender, 21, moving to Wolves as well for 20 million. Tom wouldn't mind Connor Cody at Tottenham. I wouldn't mind him from the point of view that he's a leader. And I feel the one thing that we haven't got back there is a leader. And he talks the whole game. I'm not saying he's the best player, but he's part of a very good Wolves defensive unit. But let's not go down that route. Let's talk, Kuva, about our midfield. Yeah.
It's where the fun starts.
Yes. So we've got 3. We've both gone for 3. Let's just say centre mids. I don't want to do holding mid attack.
Mine isn't.
3 centre mids, right?
Mine aren't centre mids.
Oh God, what have you done? What have you done?
It's still a 4-3-3, but mine's way attacking.
Oh God, brilliant! Listen, we're never gonna. You know when people pick their team,
I can adjust to it being 3 centres though. I've got 3 good choices for it.
You know when people pick a team and it's like a fantasy like this. Yeah. I love when people go, "No, that team wouldn't be able to defend it; would get ripped apart." You're like, "Well, who cares, right? Who cares?" Talk to me then. Who's your first of your central 3? Who's your first?
I'll go on one that we agree with here, and then I'll give an alternative for him. First on the list for me is got to be Steven Gerrard.
Yeah,
he's just the complete midfielder for me. It literally does everything. Scores goals. He takes on the responsibility of defending at crucial times. Yeah, he's had some famous slips over his career, but who hasn't? And the fact is, he's captained a very average Liverpool team. With him in it, became good enough to win European trophies and domestic cups. I don't think the rest of their team at the time was not that great. Maybe Huppier, that sort of player, but it was great. But Carragher did well. But for me, Steven Gerrard was dragging relatively poor Liverpool team through seasons winning trophies. He was immense. What a captain.
A one-man midfield. I mean, what I loved about, and just so people are clear, I also have Steven Gerrard in my team. It was, I always say this, Kuva, like, you know me, I hate all this this new terminology that people have invented for midfielders and wingers and this and that. He wasn't a defensive midfielder. He wasn't an attacking midfielder. He wasn't a box. He was just a great midfielder that could do it all. He could tackle. He had a great engine. He scored some absolute pearlers. He could pass. He could dictate a game. And he was a leader of men.
Some of those long-range passes he picked out, especially when he was playing with Torres up front, some of those worldy long-range passes into the path of Torres were just unreal. Michael Owen as well. Same deal. It was just absolutely joy to behold it. Not many players pull that off with such a level of consistency.
Yeah, and I mean the partnership I remember he had with Xavi Alonso, and who's the other one? Huh?
Not a bad little pairing, that is it?
Oh, gee, I'd love a Xavi Alonso in our midfield. I'll tell you that much. And they had, I want to say, was it Garcia? I can see a Suave, maybe Spanish player or that played in there as well. Can anyone know I'm thinking of? Liverpool, same era? Anyone in the chat will let us know.
Mascherano for some reason.
Mascherano, for me, we'll talk about other players later, but a completely underrated footballer that seamlessly slipped in at centre-back and looked bloody comfortable for years playing for Barcelona there. Okay, who are you putting in alongside Gerrard? You've got two that are going next to him.
Right. Absolutely, without doubt, have to fit this player in one way or another, and that's going to be Paul Scholes.
Right.
For me,
I also have him.
Yeah, for me, that is the closest thing to Glenn Hoddle I've ever seen. His passing range is just gorgeous to watch. It's so instant as well. He sees things before other players know they're supposed to be doing it. It scores goals. You can't knock him off the ball. For such a little lad, he's a bloody strong player. You never saw anybody knock him off the ball. It was just too good with it. He could do everything except for time of tackle. It didn't matter his partner, and he had the likes of Roy Keane to do that for him. But I love the aggression that went with it, though. Bloody hell, though, Scholesy, so many great goals as well, and big goals in big matches for England as well. Absolutely superb player. I would have absolutely drooled over him playing for us. Well, drooled over watching him play anyway. Sometimes you just got to take your, like you said, take your Spurs hat off and just appreciate some other players just for how good they are in other teams. Don't like doing it, particularly when it's Chelsea and Arsenal, but even them sometimes.
Well, there was this great compilation that went out a few years back, maybe 5-10 years back. And it was asking all of these great players from like the Italian league and the Spanish league, you know, which English player would you pick? And nearly all of them all said Scholes, like just Scholes. He was just brilliant, wasn't he? And he loved the goal. And he just got on with it. You know, he wasn't, even now when you see him, he's a bit awkward. He's a bit shy, but he just got on with it. And for me, the shame of his England career was that he was always shifted about to accommodate a pairing of Gerrard and Lampard that just didn't work. You know, that was the epitome of trying to shoehorn square pegs into round holes by having those two play together. For
me, the difference between Gerrard and Scholes in terms of quality, Gerrard you could put into an average team and turn them into a very good team. He could drag the whole team up with him. But for me, Scholes you could put into a great team and make it a legendary team. Right. He was just that extra bit of polish that other players just did not have. Magical player for me. One of the best I've ever seen.
Yeah, no, absolutely. He was different class. Who are you? Who are you putting? I'm seeing lots of names in the chat. We will go through many of these in a minute. Who are you putting alongside Gerrard and Scholes?
If we were talking of just a central three, then I'm probably going for one that was on your list, but I haven't got him there, and that would have been Vieira.
Right.
But I'll trying to squeeze in some other players that I thought you're not going to go for, and I just think need to be in the team. And there's one for me in particular, and anybody from my age will know this same feeling of on the Saturday morning, you would wait for Soccer Saturday and St. and Greavesy. And every time on Soccer Saturday, you would be waiting for the goal of the season or goal of the week contender from
Matt Le Tissier.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolute genius player. A really crappy Southampton team. I mean, bloody awful Southampton team. And he kept them up season after season after season, scoring 20 goals from midfield. And all of them absolute worldies. He could beat 5 players and smash it in the top corner. He could bend one in from 40 yards into the top corner. It was just all showcase. Highlight reel. His whole career was just highlight reel of magical goals. What a player. It's the one that's the player you pay the admission fee for. It's the one that gets you off your seat and you just go, wow.
Yeah.
Unreal.
Yeah. He's one of those, again, that had he have been Spanish, German, French, he would have had loads of caps because they really admire and appreciate those types of players. Not on the same level as Hoddle, but the reason Hoddle didn't get the number of England caps he should have, because people were, it was, oh, well, he doesn't work hard, he doesn't do this, he doesn't. Let's worry about winning games, right? Let's worry about winning games first and foremost. Okay, let me tell you. So you've gone with Scholes, Gerrard, and Le Tissier. I've gone with, no.
Well, the trouble is I had to leave out some to try and make it a sort of central midfield three. Because, I mean, I'm leaving out the likes of Ryan Giggs, David Ginola, and David Beckham.
Yeah. There's been some players, isn't there?
Yeah. The trouble is you look down the list and I'm thinking, that's pretty much the Man United team there.
Yeah. The thing is, that Man United team was so good that you could do that, right? Yeah. I'll give you my 3 and then we'll go through a plethora of names that are being, great word, by the way. I love the word plethora. We'll go through all those players. So I went for Scholes as well. I went for Gerrard as well. And I went for Patrick Vieira. And for me, everything we've already said about Scholes and Gerrard, and those two, it was the longevity as well. It was their entire careers at one club. And they were just phenomenal. The next one was Vieira, who I think revolutionised Arsenal. And I know that we're not allowed to talk about the Arsenal in any glowing lights, but he was just... I hear lots of people talking about Essien, Makelele, Kante, but Vieira did all that and more. And players like Vieira did it in a midfield too. Right, a lot of players nowadays, they've got that safety blanket of having 3 of them in there. Vieira, for me, the partnership of him and Petit was something else. And I mean, they were so much better than us during that era, weren't they? That when we played Arsenal, it was like, oh God, it was Memvi boys. And he scored goals. He would have a fight. At the same time, he just looked classy, guile, craft, tackle. And the rivalry with him and Keane, it was fabulous. But let's look. We could get many in here. We've got the likes of David Silva, Kevin De Bruyne.
I see Silva. I've got as like one of my forwards.
Is he one of your forwards?
Yeah.
We'll come to him in a minute then, but we've got players that we haven't got in our teams would be the likes of, you've got Lampard, you've got Makelele, Essien, Ballack, Didier Deschamps, Roy
Kante.
Keane, Kante.
How can you not have Kante? Win the league with Leicester, go to Chelsea, win the league again, then European success. Oh, bloody hell.
Yaya Toure.
No way. Yaya Toure at his peak. You talk about one-man midfields. This one-man wrecking machine. It's like everybody else was. It's like a giant bowling ball going through skittles. Just get out of my way. That ball's getting rammed in that net. It was unreal.
He had the wonderful Gareth Barry next to him. So I mean, players as well, like Luka Modric.
Yeah.
We've seen Edgar Davids, albeit for a short time. We've seen Edgar Davids in the Premier League. We've seen Gaza, albeit not the Gaza of the late 80s, early 90s. We've seen Paul Ince, Owen Hargreaves, Michael Carrick, who I think is one of the most underrated midfielders of Premier League history.
Yeah.
Gilberto.
You got to say Fabregas as well as great player.
I mean, you know, Chelsea have had a plethora of them, haven't they? City, even Rodri now, players that make the game look really, really easy. Fernandinho, as we said before, Xabi Alonso, Mascherano. It's impossible, isn't it, to JJ Okocha. JJ Okocha. How skillful was JJ Okocha?
Incredible signing for them. Yeah.
I'm going to chuck a name at you. I love this player. And he came over here to Bolton.
Jason Dazelle.
Yeah, I was going to say Jason Dazelle. I'll change it now. This guy came over to Bolton and you could see that he was just a class act. And I remember Bolton playing Spurs one day at White Hart Lane. And I just watched this guy on the ball. And he's one of those that played at his own tempo. Very unorthodox. But Ivan Campo. Remember him?
Oh, yeah.
Very good footballer.
I think he gets overlooked a lot because, you know, it's Bolton.
For sure. But, I mean, I remember at that time, Bolton had him, Jokaev. Do you remember? It was just like, why are all these people joining Bolton Wanderers?
Yeah, it was weird, wasn't it? Yeah.
Mental. Let's just quickly go through and see if there's any that we've not got. Billy Horrocks says, yeah, you don't have a role named after you if you aren't special. Absolutely. Yaya Toure, Kante, Modric, Tom Carroll getting an honourable mention there. Is there anyone there? No, I think we've mentioned all of them. Carrick, Fabregas, Carrick again. Modric, but I think Modric and David Silva, though, very different footballers for me.
Yeah.
One makes the game tick. The other one gets on the ball and creates. I think they're very different players. Someone we've massively overlooked. Hoddle. Hoddle played in the Premier League.
Yeah.
Bentaleb, Ryan Mason. This I agree with Matt. If Carrick was Spanish, he would have been more. Yeah. If Carrick was Spanish, he would have had 150 caps because they love a bloke like that. Dembele, Moussa Dembele for an honourable mention.
Yeah, I think Carrick would have easily replaced Busquets in the greatest Barcelona team.
Yeah. I truly believe the biggest mistake that England made during that golden generation was not having Carrick alongside Gerrard or Lampard, or going to a free, letting Carrick sit in the hole and saying to Gerrard and Lampard, you go and do your thing.
Yeah.
Because what Gerrard or Lampard didn't want to do, neither of their game was to sit. So we've got, I'll be gutted to see Ericsson in a Man U shirt, Mark Noble, and Zola. I mean, we'll get to forwards in a minute.
Great player.
We're getting to forwards now. Now, first of all, thank you, everyone. In my shows, I like a lot of interaction from the from the guests, from the chat. So if you're in the chat, can I please ask that you just smash the like button? If anybody hasn't subscribed, please do. I'm 6 off 1,400, so it'd be much appreciated if you could just go over now and subscribe.
Still laughing at Noble.
No. Oh, Mark Noble. Let's move towards the forward area now. This for me was one of those ones where I go, like, who do you pick? Whoever you pick is wrong because you're leaving out legends everywhere. Then it was, right, do I incorporate wide forward stroke wingers into my 4-3-3? What am I going to do? So we'll just go loosely with it. Have you gone with a traditional right-sided, left-sided centre forward or just free forwards?
I've tried to, but it's impossible.
Right, okay.
Okay. And then I thought, when you said like 4-3-3, and I just thought, what's Savva going to have up front? And I thought, well, it'll be him. And then I looked at it, and yep, it was there's three absolute bang on certainties for me. So I'm going to go with the ones that aren't on your list.
Oh, okay.
And because I had to try and find a way to fit in David Silva, whether you count him as midfield or attack, I just knew he's got to be in the team somewhere.
Just class. Just oozed class. Oh, just amazing player.
And I thought, if you've got David Silva, you've got to have Aguero with him.
Oh, okay.
What a player. Don't really need to say anything more about Aguero.
No,
just the fact you can hear the name as it's said by the commentator.
Yeah. That everyone.
There's another one that's always like that as well for me, more than any other. But then, because of your three, I had to sort of delve around a little bit more, have a good think about it. So I've got David Silva on the left wing, I've got Aguero in the middle, and I had to find a way to fit in Gareth Bale on the right wing.
Interesting. Now,
because of your choices.
Okay, fair enough. So if I say my three choices, and then we can go through the abundance of forward attacking talent that there has been in the Premier League. My three, I've gone with Ronaldo playing off the right. I've gone with Omri playing off the left. Loosely, it doesn't really matter. And I've gone with Super Alan Shearer through the centre. I mean, I don't really need to sell it, but I will. I mean, Ronaldo is Ronaldo. It's Ronaldo, right?
Yeah.
I don't need to tell anyone what he brings.
Move on, mate.
Omri, for me, was individually the greatest forward I've seen play in the Premier League. I've got Shearer in there. Shearer was the greatest goal scorer, but Omri just, when we talk about Rolls Royce, he was just pace, power, skill, great passing, great hold-up play, could play through the channel, could play through the middle, goals. It just...
Up there, mate. Ahead of everybody by a mile up there.
Oh, he was a genius. And again, whenever we played an Arsenal team that had Thierry Henry, it was, oh, fuck, we've got the North London derby today. It's not like it is now when we're playing against the likes of Callum Chambers and Eddie Nketiah. I mean, let's have a look then. So we've gone with Silva, Aguero, Bale, Ronaldo, Shearer, and Omri. Let's have a look now, Kuva, at some of the players that did not make our team. Let's start with some obvious ones. Eric Cantona. Right? What a player. Brilliant. Eric Cantona.
Dennis Bergkamp.
Zola. Rooney. Van Nistelrooy.
Klinsmann and Sheringham.
Kane. I just the name Drogba, Salah, Let's see if we got any different names. So what we're getting here, we've got Ellie's gone with Zola, Sheringham, Cantona. Billy's gone with Henri, Rooney, or Shearer.
Yeah, could have mentioned Rooney, haven't you?
Absolutely. Shearer, Kane, Rooney, Henri, Aguero, Bale. The only reason I didn't put Bale in was because of the longevity thing. That was the only reason I didn't put him in. Not his longevity at Real Madrid, but in terms of for his impact in the Premier League was short. But
do you know why I put him in? I felt terrible about my lack of Spurs players in the team.
Can I be honest?
Yeah.
That's why I kind of went for Walker over Neville in the end. I looked at my team and I went, "Oh, there's no Spurs players in here." So, we've got Rooney, Drogba, Aguero. We've got Salah. Same Eden Hazard for a mention. Mark Overmars, Robert Perez,
Van Persie. Van Persie, great player.
Oh, Van Persie, Tevez. Yeah. Who else have? I mean, Arsenal have had Kanu. Just as made. I mean, Ken's gone for Henri, Kane, and Bale, so getting the Spurs theme in there. Klinsmann, Dimitar Berbatov,
Suarez, and Berbatov. Yeah, Christ.
Suarez. I mean, who else have Chelsea had in that time? I mean, Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank was a goal machine.
Yeah.
Robbie Fowler, Michael Owen.
Yeah.
I mean, it was
Torres as well. Torres before he had that off season and then went to Chelsea for the overpriced amount. But before that, unbelievable player then.
Yeah, as Ellie said, Zola was just a little magician, wasn't he? He was doing things with football that we hadn't seen a lot in the Premier League before he joined. He was just different class. He was.
There was a point with Chelsea when they had the likes of Petrescu, Zola, players of that style, where I got to the point I'm thinking, you know what, I don't mind Chelsea at the moment, and I just thought, what the hell am I saying? It's Chelsea, I hate them, but the team was just that good to watch. It was they just had some fantastic players.
What about Man United? 3 of their 4 that won the Champions League: Cole, Solskjaer, York. There's just been so many class players. My front 3, all class footballers as well, scored brilliant individual goals. Luis Suarez, Alexis Sanchez had a couple of great years for Arsenal. We can't knock that. He did. I mean, where else do you go from? I mean, what's happened to that depth? Where's that depth gone now, Kuva? Where is it?
Different, isn't it? I don't think so much nowadays people are relying on the out-and-out goal scorer, are they? It's more of a flexible sort of attacking role. Yeah. So the goals are spread out amongst the teams. Are we scoring more goals nowadays in the league than ever? Possibly. Supposedly the likes of Liverpool and Man City are always going to be banging in loads. So, Sadio Mane, great player as well.
I love this. Matt has said, Cole, York, Solskjaer, Sheringham, where are they all going to fit in? Yeah, look, that's why whenever Spurs fans tell me, oh, who's going to sit on the bench? I go, well, hang on. United want a treble with 4 strikers. I have a question then, while we're talking about forwards. In 7, 8, 9 years' time, are we going to be sitting here talking about Haaland in the 3? Do you think he's going to, if he stays here for that long, that he's going to have that sort of impact?
Yeah, I do. I really do. It's a bit worrying how good he's going to be, I think. You hope he doesn't click on the first season and somehow we get everything working right and have a huge slice of luck and maybe we could get into the picture coming into the end of the season. But the danger is Haaland's going to be banging in truckload of goals. Yeah. He's almost the perfect centre forward. He's got everything: pace, power, height, aggression. He can drop back deep and join in with a link-up play really well. Very much an underrated part of his game.
Yeah.
And his finishing is sensational. He's so clinical with everything.
Yeah.
It's not like Harry Kane when he's on a real roll. He creates a lot of chances for himself and those around, and he'll take, say, maybe a couple of goals out of 5 chances he's made for himself.
Yeah.
Haaland is the sort of player that 3 chances, 3 goals. There's hardly any waste with him. It's like Lewandowski's are saying, they rarely miss. They're
Yeah.
absolutely lethal. Shevchenko was another one like it as well, and Van Basten.
I'll tell you what, I hated it when Chelsea bought Shevchenko. Shevchenko had always played in a 4-4-2 for Milan, and always been a fox in the box, right?
Yeah.
And then Chelsea played him as a lone striker, asking him to run the channels. And I always remember thinking, that's not your game. Like, they've done it with a lot of players. I remember they did it with Hernan Crespo as well.
Yeah.
They did it with, they've done it with so many players.
We did it with Soldado as well, didn't we?
But we did. Soldado was a funny one because as a goal scorer, Soldado was deadly. But anyone who'd ever watched him play for Valencia knew that his game was playing off another forward.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, Spurs fans are going, oh, he's shit. He wasn't shit. His game wasn't running channels. And the best period we had with Soldado was when he actually played off of Adebayor. When Sherwood came in for a little bit. But Di Canio has been mentioned.
Great player. Really was.
What about Benito Carboni? Players like that. I mean, so many players that have played. Let me ask you this. Who is going to manage your team?
Greatest Premier League manager out of all of them.
You can have the obvious because I've had all the.
Well, no, let's ignore the obvious then and go for the runners up then, shall we?
Okay, so you're not allowed to pick Alex Ferguson.
Oh,
right? Oh, who are you thinking?
No, of course it was him.
Have you got Wenger on the mind again? Is that what's going on here?
It's difficult to ignore him, isn't it? He did create bloody good teams. And over a long period as well. And he was the natural rival to Sir Alex Ferguson for a long, long time. But then you've got to throw Mourinho into the mix. What he did at Chelsea was unbelievable. It was the big stopping block on Man United at the time. Sir Alex Ferguson had to sit back and accept that he's not going to win anything for a little while. Who would have thought that could have happened? You got to look at what Klopp's done with Liverpool. Pep at Man City, like him or not, or say he's overrated because he always works with the top players in the world. Doesn't matter. It's still a bloody good team.
I always feel when people say that as well, I think we've seen many instances through the years, Kuva, where managers have had the best players in the world and can't get them playing. There is an art to balancing that many good players. Not only that, it's for me the way Pep gets these superstars. They all work their bollocks off for him. There's no, like if you looked at the Galacticos at Madrid, where it was somebody will win us the game. PSG now with Mbappe, Neymar, Messi, somebody will get the ball and do something individual. City don't have that. City don't have one man that you go, he is everything. They've got just the work rate. They had this at Barcelona. If Lionel Messi or David Villa lost the ball, within 3 seconds, they bang, won it back. So if we look at Ferguson as the benchmark, Klopp, Guardiola, Mourinho, are these guys? Is it just a given that they're below him, or is that too easy to say?
I think you've got to look at the entirety of the career. When Sir Alex took over at Man United, they were a very, very average first division team at that point. We'd finish above them quite easily and look a far better team. Went back in the days of Hoddle and Waddle and Clive Allen, etc. And United really weren't anything. They had some big names like Brian Robson and Norman Whiteside and Paul McGrath. these players started to get shifted out because Alex Ferguson wasn't going to tolerate any of the boozing going on behind the scenes. So Brian Robson knocked it on the head, stayed at the club. The other two got moved on because they did enjoy having a bit of a pint after a game. Now, what he did then was bringing through all the youth, all the Mark Robinson and Lee Sharps and players like that. And he went for a transitional period where it was very difficult for him. But he did weather out. He stuck to his guns. And then that great pool of young talent came through. You know, obviously the class of 92 and as they say, with all the Giggs and the Scholes and Beckham and the Nevilles and people like that. And the fact he's moulded that all together based on such youth and brought in some clever signings. Steve Bruce was a stellar signing, one of the most underrated they've ever had.
Absolutely.
Because he was that experienced head at the back there. He knew what was needed to hold the team together and be the defender, the one that put his head in where it hurt when everybody else could concentrate on being these incredibly talented attacking players. He was doing the donkey work. Pallister was a great compliment with him at the back there, with the sort of more cultured, more of a modern style defender he was. But the fact that Ferguson put all that together and then turned them into this championship winning team and then treble winning team, and he could rebuild it constantly when players did leave, when other clubs would suffer greatly for it. But Alex Ferguson, he'd have a way of recycling it, and just off they went again. And he did it over and over and over. It was machine-like. He can't really compare anybody to him in that respect. It's just, it's not just because they had all the resources that nobody else had. They were doing it. They were doing it when they didn't have the resources, when they weren't the best club when he took over. He had to change so much and turn that around. What a fantastic manager. Getting the best out of all the players that are in there. And the best players in the world come in, and it's like, if there was a problem, that player would go. He didn't care who it was,
You know, so Graham, who comes on my shows, he always says to me, he said, the thing that Ferguson had is the thing that Pep has, right? It's the thing that Jose had. It's this tenacity. It's this constantly going again after, demanding. It's not, oh, we've won a trophy, sit back, it don't matter what we do next year. It's, right, we've just won a double. What are we doing next year? How are we going to beat that again? I've seen Poch's name is being thrown around. I mean, for me, I'm sorry, I don't want to be disrespectful, but I can't put him anywhere near these other managers. I know people are going to have a go. Got to a Champions League final, but without
I don't rate that as anything to do with the success we had with Poch. It wasn't the Champions League final. It was taking over a broken team and then forming one that played great football and got into a couple of title races. We were at least in those races, which was more than anybody else had been managing for 20 odd years. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think for me, I always say that any team can have a good cup run. I know that sounds like I'm belittling it, but lots of teams will go through this, right? Lots of teams. There's always somebody who's a surprise package. The thing for me was it was what was happening in the league behind that Champions League form was more my concern at the time, because we just scraped fourth. We fell off a cliff. But look, I think the level of managers we're talking about are far beyond Poch. When you look at Wenger, I mean, I don't even put Klopp anywhere near a Wenger.
I think Wenger is going to have to be my answer if we're ignoring Sir Alex Ferguson in the Premier League era. I hate saying it, but it's true. Wenger built a great side. The Invincibles were brilliant to watch, not just effective. And the fact he could do it on such a relatively shoestring budget season after season, bringing in players nobody had heard of. Load of the amount of times you bring in a load of French youngsters, and then suddenly we'd all know the names Pires and Vieira and you name it. There was so many, wasn't there?
And it was what it gets talked about a lot. That he went there and he changed the diets up, and it was if you look at those Arsenal teams that were so great under him, it was not that they were just fantastic footballers; they were athletes.
Yeah.
If you look at that team with Gilberto, Vieira, Perez, Campbell, Torre, Lauren, none of them were small. They were all athletes that could play football as well. I mean, is there anyone else? I mean, for me, I think Mourinho is one of the greatest managers of all time. Like you say, love him, hate him, the mind games, talking a lot. But what he did, I mean, first of all, what he did at Porto, he took a Porto team, and what a lot of people don't know, I say not a lot of people don't know, is that he actually went to the lower leagues of Portugal to buy players that would run through brick walls for him at Porto, won the Europa League, then the Champions. It's like, then he's come to Chelsea and calls himself the special one. Now, to do that, you've got to have some balls, right? Because you're turning up going, I'm the special one. You've now got to deliver. And boy, did he deliver, right?
Yeah. I always said this, professional sports in general, I don't mind somebody being really cocky if they back it up with performance. The likes of Conor McGregor, the UCL. UCL? Well, that's not the word I'm looking for.
I don't think he's ever played in the Champions League.
No, he hasn't. He'd probably say he could, but UFC, of course. Yeah, I mean, he backed it up, didn't he? He did what he said he was going to do. All right, he's come off the wheels a bit now, but back at the time, he used to just be cocky and then go and do it. I don't know, Muhammad Ali, greatest boxer of all time, in most people's books, anyway. He'd always brag about it. I am the greatest. If you do back it up, then why not? It's just showing off how supremely confident you are in your own ability. So
absolutely,
with Jose Mourinho, backed it up. So yeah, he was special. I mean, I hated it at the time. I used to think, what an arrogant prick.
Yeah,
I look back at it and I think, you know what? He was so entertaining to listen to. Those press conferences, love them or hate them, they were just spectacular. You never knew what you'd get from him. It was complete box office all the time off the pitch. That's the one thing I didn't like his stay with us in footballing terms, but I grew to really like him as a person for some reason. It's the worse it got on the pitch, the more I started liking him for some reason. I don't know why. It all started with that going and buying Regulon, that big suckling pig, and taking it to his door. And I thought, that's the kind of personal touch you don't see very often, isn't it? It's something unusual about him.
The thing is with Jose as well is not that, I mean, he did it at Porto, right? And people could go, oh, fluke. I mean, not me. You know, you don't win a UEFA Cup and then a Champions League. Then he'd come to England and done it with Chelsea, right? Now, people can say, oh, well, they had loads of money. Yeah, but they hadn't won. They hadn't managed to get over that line. Jose did it multiple times. He's then gone and done it at Inter Milan. He's then gone and broken Barcelona's monopoly on Spanish football with Real Madrid. And people said he was boring, even though his Real Madrid team hit goal-scoring records. He's then come back and done it again at Chelsea. He's then gone to United, who were awful, and won another 2 trophies. We won't talk about his time at Spurs because we sacked him 5 days before a cup final, which is madness. Love him, hate him. You want him in your dugout for a cup final. He's then gone to Roma and won them their first European trophy. Yet the hate that gets bestowed upon this man is madness. But then what we will do, especially Spurs fans, is we'll go, oh, but Poch. And it's like, no. There's levels, right? There's levels to management. I'm not belittling Poch, but for him to get to those levels, he's got to start winning titles at a club that isn't PSG. Yeah, his next move needs to be, he needs to go and do something like what Mourinho did. He needs to go and say, right, I'm special. Look what I'm going to create. Is that fair?
Yeah, of course it's fair. But let's face it, though, at the end of the day, all of it pales into insignificance compared to Conte winning the quadruple next season, doesn't it?
Absolutely. When Conte wins the quad, we're all laughing. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll owe a lot of people money if we win the quad. Just so, just so you know.
Sorry, I can lend you some. I'll be loaded at that point.
Yeah, I've heard something about being mentioned a few times about stats aimed at you. So there's a question that's been burning inside me, says Bob Spur. Please answer this. What is a stat? I'm guessing this has something to do with Will Stewart.
It does indeed. It does indeed.
If I have one more conversation about stats, do you know what? I'll be honest. Lots of my friends are scouts and coaches for Premier League teams, and I've worked in a football team, and all the best scouts and coaches I talk to all say, I don't need a stat to tell me if a player's any good. I was having this chat with Henry Wright yesterday. The stats bore me to death. It doesn't tell you everything you need to know about a player and can be very, very misleading. Can you tell me what this is all about?
I can, but I just can't be bothered to go through it all again. It's basically, it's the me having an argument with Will over stats. I say stats should never define a player. You've got to I'll take the eye test over it every day, and I would always judge the player on what I'm seeing rather than looking at the figures afterwards, because that's what scouts always used to do back in the day, way before Opta was around. Didn't have all these masses of statistics,
right?
And still, you knew he was a great player. But Will's always going to back up his stats bit, because he's right when he says that stats are factual. It's factual bits of information. Mm-hmm. But the argument always comes down to then, are you judging a player on the statistics or the analytics of those statistics? And it's different. And then I'll mention things like Modric's pass in the Champions League final, outside of the boot, curled over perfectly from about 35 yards. Nobody's wowing it up, quite rightly so, because it was a moment of genius. But at the end of the day, that will just show in the stats as, say, a 30-yard pass when an assist. Whereas you could do a hopeful ball forward, get the same results though in stat-wise. And, a donkey could have done that pass if it's just a hopeful lob.
So I'll ask you a question, Kova. So let's talk about this. I'll ask you a question, right? Have you, you're old enough. You've seen a lot of football in your time. Have you ever needed anybody to put a stat in front of you for you to go, oh, I like that player now I've seen that stat?
No. If anything, I've seen it the other way round, where a player I've quite liked, and then they said he's no good, and then they'll bring up a stat, and I'm looking at it, and I think, you know what? You're right. That's really not very good. And I'll take one of those as Lucas Moura, because all the skill in the world, looks brilliant on his day, but you then do look at the stats and say, he's getting a goal once every sort of 7 games. He still hasn't scored 20 for us in the league. And then when you start looking at that and applying the stats, then you analyze it that way. Suddenly it makes sense. So I'm much more of the, I like to look at the player and decide if they're good or not. But then I do also like to look at the stats afterwards if I'm undecided on somebody, or comparing two players that I find similar.
See, can I tell you, the only stats I care about is more for like forwards. I want to know how many games you played, how many goals did you score, right? My playmakers, I want to know how many assists you got. What I find really draining with football now is Sky Sports doing it loads. When they're analysing a player, they break down everything. Now, I'll tell you why I think it's difficult to do this. So I'm not going to say who, but I was watching a show with a couple of YouTubers the other week. And what they did was they brought on 6 central midfielders they wanted to talk about. One was Tielemans, one was Weston McKennie, Basuma, a few others like that. And what they did was they broke down how many passes completed per game, intensity, pressures, this, that tackles, this, that, the other. And all I said was in the chat was, what I don't understand about these stats is these don't match up against each other because they all play for very different footballing teams. I.e., your passing percentage is going to be much better if you play in a Pep Guardiola team and you have volume of passes, right? Your running stats are going to be a lot better if you play for Conte as opposed to playing for Nuno Santos, right? Your goal output from midfield is going to be a lot better if you play for Liverpool than it is if you play for Leicester City, right? So when people are comparing all of these stats, I just look at it and go, I just feel like it's overkill. It's pure overkill. And I know people say, oh, the eye test. That's how people have done it through the test of time, Kuva, right? And the best one for me was, Alan Shearer on Match of the Day last year. He turned around and he said, he turned around and they were looking at all these stats and they said, oh, what a player this guy is. He's done this, blah, blah, blah. And Alan Shearer turned around and said, my goal scoring record wasn't bad. Right, I think obviously being a bit modest as the all-time top goal scorer, and said, but if you had put my stats of tackles, if you would put my stats of pressure, if you would put my stats of X, Y, Z, I would have been down there and everyone would think I'm a terrible player. Yeah. So it is really difficult.
The most obvious one for me is, well, you just said it yourself, the only time you pay attention is when it's forwards. So if I said something like, would you take a forward that scores 23 goals? 23 goals, I think, in the first. Hang on, let's get it the right way round here.
Just quickly, Football Ferreira, thank you very much for the super sticker. Much appreciated. I hope you are well, brother. Go and support this man's channel.
Sorry, yep. Yeah, if you got forward scores 23 goals in their first 121 games, would you take them?
23 in their first
121 games.
Probably not.
Well, and another player that does is, funnily enough, that before joining a team, they score 23 goals in about 121 games for the other teams as well. Do you want that one either?
No, go on.
Well, that's Alan Shearer and Thierry Henry before joining Blackburn or Arsenal.
Right.
So the stats aren't really what you should be looking at in those cases. It's more to their game. Yeah. You can measure some of it in metrics. To a point, Will's right, because top teams do look at it for a sort of an extra level of analysis to make decisions when they're trying to get that extra 5% out of their signings or systems or the way of playing, because they're at that elite level where just an extra point in a season could mean the difference between winning or losing a title.
For sure.
That's where it comes into play for me. But otherwise, I'm with you all the way, mate. I can pick a player just by watching them to an extent.
I say this, like I said, before all these stats and everything came about, I didn't need a stat to tell me that David Ginola was wonderful to watch play football.
Yeah.
I didn't need a stat to tell me that Gary Lineker was a natural born goal scorer, right? I didn't need a stat to know that Ledley King was a quality centre. This is my point. You could bring up stats of Ledley King, of clearances, this, that, the other. That could have been poor in terms of the number of clearances because that might not have been his game, right? But I didn't need that stat to tell me he was a good player. And I get it. The world has moved on. The world has evolved. But I feel like I keep hearing this from people now, like, oh, the eye test. Well, this is what we watch football with. Yeah, I watch football with, when I go to the game, I don't sit and watch a little stat pad. I watch it with my eyes. But yeah, it's an interesting one. Just quickly before we go on, Ellie, thank you so much. It's a huge donation. Half of that goes to charity. And she has said, for our dads, Savva, both mine and Ellie's dads have left us to go to new worlds. Thank you very much. That's very kind. I really, really appreciate that, Ellie. So thank you very much. Much love to you. And I know your dad will be really proud of what you did for Tottenham women and your love for Højbjerg as well. I know how much you love your man Højbjerg. I'll tell you what, Just quickly, let's move away then from all this fantasy stuff. I saw a stat the other day, funny enough, that Højbjerg had like the second most completed passes. I want to say he was second or third in the Premier League last season. Now, what does that stat tell you? Because most people go, oh, his pass is brilliant. But most Spurs fans you speak to, Højbjerg, shit. Rah, 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 rah. So again, is it eye test? Is it stat test? What's the...
He's one of these anomalies for me where the stats don't quite line up with what I see in the player.
Right.
Yeah, for me, it seems very sort of routine stuff with him. There's no real imagination in the passing, and he always just reminds me of a workhorse. I always call him Stefan Freund Mark II. But I'm probably being too harsh. Stats suggest I am wrong to say that, but can't help but shake that feeling. I'd prefer to see a different sort of player there. Basuma, for me, looks better in every aspect of the game. Just stronger players bounce off him. I see Højbjerg making this big thing made about all his tackles and his pressing players, and he does go at players like an annoying sort of insect sort of thing. Won't let you off the ball. Robbie Savage used to do that. He was good at that. It was just annoying.
Yeah.
So he's got that part, but Basuma is the sort of player that he wants you off the ball. You're off the ball. There's no bouncing off other players. You bounce off him. He's much stronger player, press resistant that Højbjerg isn't. But the passing bit, it kind of gets a bit lost, doesn't it? Yeah.
I mean,
I think all I can think of is the amount of passes he must be doing, the quick pass into the likes of Kane or something like that to pick it up in the midfield. And you don't see the instant result. It's like part of the build-up.
Yeah.
So a lot of it can be underrated. And in that respect, perhaps I do underrate him. But again, I just see other players doing it better. But are they?
So just quickly, just before I move on, Tom, 81, £10, another one for the dads. Everyone very sentimental about dads tonight. Thank you very much. Again, we've now made a lot of money tonight for the British Heart Foundation. So thank you so much for that. That is much appreciated. For fuck's sake, made me emotional now, guys. Off topic. Learn CPR could save a life. Please do it. Absolutely. I've done my course. I do know how to do it. But yes, anybody else out there, it's definitely worth doing. Another example for me is if you watched our game the other night against Seville, right? Did you watch the whole 90 minutes?
Yeah.
Right. Now, Højbjerg was absolutely ruined.
Yeah.
Terrible half. He was poor, this, that, the other. Bentancur's come on. He's changed the game. He was brilliant. Do you know, in that game, that Bentancur gave the ball away double the amount of times that Højbjerg gave the ball away? Right? So again, it can be strange. I'm not saying Højbjerg had a better game.
If you're going to give the ball away, give it away with style.
Right, right, okay. And that's my point. Is because I remember I'm in an Instagram group, and afterwards somebody put on and went, Bentancur was amazing when he come on, and I said, look, I think what we're getting confused with, he went and pressured, won the ball to help score the goal. He also gave the ball away for their goal. And 3 or 4 times after that, because he wants so long on the ball, he kept getting caught in possession and losing the ball. But isn't it, I'm not digging him out. What I'm saying, isn't it funny that mind over matter with these things is just really, really strange how people will perceive how one person played. But again, the stats don't tell you that. But that's what I mean. I think we pick and choose when we want to use stats to back up our argument.
Yeah, sure. I think it's a natural thing, isn't it?
Of course it is.
You want always positive confirmation, isn't it? It's yeah. I mean, it's easy to cherry pick with stats when you're trying to make one argument, but it's much harder to go against it when the stats don't fall your way, which is why I struggle a little bit with the Højbjerg argument now. It's my gut feeling about the player as a player from having watched him a lot of times, and I feel like he lacks what some of the other players might have. I may be too harsh, but I'm sticking with it.
Yeah.
Because I
I mean,
don't want to play the game on a spreadsheet. I don't want to play it on just like a statistical analysis either. It's just see what you see. I mean, Bentancur with it as well. If you do look at the match, yeah, he did give the ball away a lot. Our midfield just struggled against a very good Sevilla side.
But they were excellent, weren't they?
Yeah.
And again, I think it's another. Let's talk about that game. I'm going to go for another 10 minutes if you're okay to go for another 10. I saw a lot of people before the game going, "Oh, it's only Seville. We'll walk all over them." Now, whilst I don't really care about the scores of friendly games, right? I don't really care. It doesn't have a bearing on anything. What I do look at, Kuva, is, okay, are we getting into some sort of rhythm with our pattern of play as to how we've been training in pre-season? What really worried me about that game was I didn't really see I didn't see what we were trying to do. It felt very flat. Now, it's a friendly. It's about fitness. But that was a real concern for me, that we just didn't look like we had a game plan. And Seville dominated. Like they really, really dominated us.
Yeah. They were by far the better footballing side. There's no question about it whatsoever. Until the wholesale changes started happening, and then the game lost a little bit of coherency. But overall, the Sevilla press was insanely good. We couldn't deal with it. Basuma would have helped with that, but a general feeling is that a lot of our players cannot play very well when put under that pressure. And we've seen that a lot in the past. Brighton did it to us very successfully last season. And the thing with Sevilla is they were a well-oiled machine. I couldn't believe people writing them off saying we should be smashing them. They're a bloody good side, Champions League team, and a team that's used to winning European trophies. Europa League and Sevilla have been going hand in hand a few seasons in a row. This is an experienced team as well. Some of those players, Acuna at the left back, who's
I thought it was excellent.
Yeah,
I thought it was excellent.
What a great player! I mean, you're looking at left back options. That would have been one for us easily.
Yeah. Even the likes of Rakitic when he came on, you just see, for me, and this is what I keep saying about Spurs for next season, the four midfielders we've got, I don't think we've got anybody that can do like what the Seville midfielders do. You know, put their foot on the ball, comfortable to say, we'll have the ball for the next 5 minutes. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that for me raised a bit of a concern. But again, I don't want to go too over the top about it because it is a friendly. What worried me more than anything was, again, we looked very, very poor from the wing back areas. We didn't look like we had creativity. You can say, all right, Perisic wasn't playing and so-and-so wasn't playing, but am I right to be concerned about these things? Like, I don't feel, Kuva, that we've still addressed a number of our issues. I'm really concerned about it.
You just summed it up there. We said, oh, we look so weak in the wing-back positions. And you say, oh, Perisic wasn't playing. Are we going to be going through the season worried that Perisic won't be playing a game? We've got to have quality in reserve. Well, not even reserve, just in a squad where it's comfortable. Anybody that comes into the team can play the system, play it comfortably. It's comfortable on the ball. They don't panic when they get pressed. Pass it accurately amongst yourselves. You either pass through a press like that, or you dribble through it, or you just bypass it altogether and play a great long ball game. We were doing none of that. It looked like we were trying to pass our way through it and messing it up because the players just didn't perform well enough. Included. It was a pretty shocking performance, but would the extra player in midfield have helped with that? If it was Basuma, yeah, you'd have to say it would. And at the end of the day, it was a good workout because not everybody is as proficient with that high press as Sevilla are. Their manager is one of the most underrated managers in world football at the moment, in my opinion. I think he was at Real Madrid for a little bit. It did, for some reason, it didn't work out there. But I think he was the Spanish national manager for a while as well.
Teams like Seville will always be underrated because imagine a team like that had a world-class striker. That's where I feel teams like that will let themselves down because they don't have that what I call a big gun. They don't have that bloke that can finish off all these nice moves.
When just against us, the amount of times up towards the end of the first half, it was like fairly even at the start of the game. A lot of work going in from both teams, but then Sevilla started to put their foot on the accelerator, and we were pushed back, and they started to create chances at will. And you just thought, you know what? If they'd had a Harry Kane there on the edge of the box, he wouldn't have been blazing those shots wide. They would have been going in. We would have been 3-0 down at half time easily. But like you said, they don't have that killer forward up there, and that is hampering them.
I'll come back to Seville in 1 second. Just quickly, Dennis says, Savva, you are a Barcelona admirer. Yeah, I've always loved watching Barcelona. I feel like they play the way that I like watching. Would I say I'm an admirer? I wouldn't say admirer. I'm a fan of how they play when they get it right. I think Xavi will do that for them. But yes, I think we're just going to go for another 2-3 minutes, Cougar. Just quickly, I think what that showed me was that level of team, like Seville. That's what we're going to be up against in Champions Leagues. Teams that, okay, they might not have somebody to finish the dinner off up front, but teams that will frustrate us, teams that will keep possession. And I just wonder, are we going to have a plan B for when our kind of quick counter-attack doesn't work? Are we going to have a way of getting up the pitch without that?
No. It's that simple. We have not got the squad depth to significantly change up the entire way the team plays. That's it. Simple as anything. Nobody has summed up the remainder of the transfer window more poignantly for me than what Iggy said on Tottenham away the other night. And somebody questioning, what do we need? And he just says, quality players. Just get them in.
For sure.
That's all there is to it.
Do you think that the word volume, that the volume of signings is actually being talked about more than the quality of signings? Because, you know, I look at what we've done, and again, people will take this the wrong way. I don't think we've had a bad window. I think it's been good, but I always put emphasis on good, not really good. I just worry that I still don't think we've addressed the right wing back. Sorry, that's just my opinion. I still don't think we've addressed centre back. I still don't think we've addressed any form of creativity. And I think the squad depth is really, really light. And like I kept saying the other day on the stream, I'll say this to you, the last thing, I'm going to go in a minute, but other than, let's assume Richarlison doesn't start, other than Richarlison, who is coming on for Spurs to change a game?
Who's coming on? They'll be on the pitch already, won't they?
Right. But that's my point, right? Yeah. When we've got games and we're struggling to break teams down, definitely the tough Champions League nights, other clubs will go to their bench and go, right, you 3 or 4, kit off, top up. No. Forget I said that.
What have you been watching?
Oh, something over there. Get on the pitch. At Spurs, I still think at the moment, Conte's going to turn around and go, all right, I've got Richarlison. Now, we've got some decent players, but no one that's going to come on and you go, this is going to change the game for us. Now, I keep getting told I'm negative for that, but I don't see it. I see a couple of injuries and we are done for. Centre half, Romero gets injured, I worry. If one of the forwards gets injured, we've got no forwards on the bench. You've got all 4 of our centre mids are similar in terms of not one of them's got that ability to control a game. Not one of them's a goal scorer or a creator. I'm worried, mate. I'll be honest. I'm worried.
We were doing this fantasy signings type thing on Sean's Sean's show, the Spurs Talk Show the other day,
Yeah.
and with Sean posed the question: if we assume we had 150 million still left to spend, which is actually quite a feasible amount if you look at players that could be going out the door, those 4 that were left at home from the Korea trip. If you assume you could sell all of them on for as little as 15 million each, that's another 60 million in the kitty. That would actually put us 3 million in credit on our signings so far this season, which is unreal. With that 150 million injected in clubs. So if you assume that's available and then look at market values of players that are out there that we're linked with, I made the case for why not go out, sign Kostic, Ndika, De Vrij, and then go nip over to Leicester and get the likes of someone like James Maddison and James Justin.
Mm-hmm.
And you've addressed both wing-back positions, got Maddison as the creative influence up front, and you've got a quality centre-back in as well. And you know, that is, it might be more than the 150 million, but if that's what we've got at the moment and we can sell some of the others on as well, why are we not aiming to do that? I don't think any of those players on my list was out of the realms of possibility, was it?
They're not, Kuva. And look, Kuva, I think we've done a few shows just after that announcement about like the 150 million, which I'm so bored of hearing about. And I think everyone got way too excited. I was hearing from fans, right, that's 150 million for players, plus Champions League money, plus player sales. We're going to spend 300 million. It's quite clear Tottenham Hotspur are not. It's quite clear that this window, and I said to someone today, this window is the same as every other window. And hear me out, Kuva. The difference is that we always make 5, 6, 7 signings in the summer. We do. We did last year. We did under Jose, right? We do. Apart from the summer where we didn't make any, right? But the difference is we've gone early this year. However, just because of that, I'm still not seeing the quality of player that I think is needed for Champions League. I look at the 6 players that have come in, and 2, maybe 3 at the best would be what you'd call first team starters, right? 2 or 3 of them are squad players. So when I look at that, and again, I'm not being negative. I'm not being negative. I look at it and I go, have we added squad depth? I don't think so, because, you know, we've let Bergwijn go, who was the only other attacking option, and replaced him with Richarlison. All right. Forster's replacing Galini. Longley's going to replace, let's say, Tanganga, who's going to Milan. Basuma, for me, isn't different enough from the other midfielders anyway, and he'll be replacing an Ndombele or a Lo Celso. I don't think we've added depth, mate. That is what I'm getting to. I don't think we've added anywhere near the amount of depth needed or the quality. That's the last thing I'm going to say. I'll hand over to you and then I'll finish the show.
Well, yeah, I mean, the obvious way for me to look at it would be add the quality. Because by adding the quality into the first team, the players that drop out of that first team become the depth on the bench there. They won't be ideal. I mean, if we sign De Vrij and he goes and plays in place of Dyer sitting on the bench isn't a bad option. I think he's quite all right to do that. I think De Vrij would be a great upgrade. So that's one obvious one, a relatively cheap option. It's not a marquee signing by any means, but it's a good upgrade, bloody good upgrade, I think. Yeah. If we're doing the same all over the pitch, the likes of Kostic, don't let West Ham get it. If West Ham are in for Kostic, if they get them, I'll go spare. I mean, that's
Kuva, can I just add? Choice. Look, I put that voice note in our WhatsApp group earlier, and I think you could hear it in my voice. When I saw that West Ham are about to sign Scamacca, which apparently is done now, and Kostic, I went, hang on. They're the sort of players, like for me, I would have rather Scamacca at 38 million euros than Richarlison at 60. Kostic is a no-brainer for the way that we play. And I don't want to hear, well, we've got Perisic. All right, get Kostic as well, build a squad. I feel like that they're shopping in the market we should be shopping in. And they're a Conference League team. I don't see that we've done enough. I still don't think we're shopping in the market that suggests we're a Champions League club. I'm sorry. I really don't.
This transfer window. It's a promising start, but it's incomplete so far. I think we're going to. I've said it so many times now. I think this window's a failure unless we are getting the depth in the wing back areas in particular, because Conte's system relies so heavily on it. And if we've only got Perisic and then Jed Spence on the other side as the only sort of viable options to fit the system,
Right.
we're looking at Lucas Moura being converted to a right wing back. We will have messed this window up. And it's just by not going that extra little step. And then it suddenly starts looking like if we do sell off those surplus players and end up in a profit anyway, what was that 150 million really about?
Right.
And I think it was Will Stewart bringing up the point. It then looks like all Levy has really done is dilute the shares amongst other shareholders and giving himself 3% extra holding on the club at no overall cost because the money stayed in the club.
Kova, I've said it all summer. You're probably bored of hearing me say it. I said at the beginning of the window, Spurs will spend 150 million. However, it won't be 150 million just injected into the club. We'll spend 150 million. I think we'll make between 100 and 120, 110, and I think we'll end up putting net in of 40 million pounds. I think that was very clever PR. I think the buzz it gave people that hadn't read the statement. They read the caption of Spurs inject 150 million, but they didn't read what it was. Now, it's comments like this that baffle me. We now have the squad to compete in all 4 tournaments. I really don't understand Spurs fans. Again, Kuva, at the moment, and again, I'll say this now, there's still time in the window. Romero gets injured. Let's say he does his cruciate ligament and he's out for 6 months.
Yeah.
We have not got a back three that's good enough for Champions League football. No. You know, Kane gets injured. You've now got Kulusevski's son and Richarlison every game. And your player on the bench is Lucas Moura that has shown for the last 3 years he doesn't do anything when he comes on. When I bring this up, I get called ultra negative, but I look, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I'm looking at it. I don't feel like we're shopping in the areas we should be. I don't feel like Spurs have actually gone and done anything that makes me go, wow. And what I mean by that, Coover, is this. I'm all for sensible business. I'm not for just spending money for the sake of it, but Forster and Perisic on a free, right? Longley on a loan. Okay. Basuma at 25 million last year of his contract. Jed Spence at 12.5 million. Right? So other than that, the only real money we've gone to spend on a player is Richarlison. And yet people are going, oh my God, Spurs are going for it. We're putting a title charge together. Mate, I must be in the minority because I just do not understand. I get people like Will Stewart telling me, like me and Will had a bet. I don't know if you saw it. We've had a £1,000 bet because he said Spurs will finish above Liverpool. A Liverpool squad that is exactly the same apart from bringing in Nunes for Mane. I don't know what I'm missing, Kuva. Help me. What am I missing that everyone is so positive about?
I think you're underestimating. Oh, no, wait. You bet that Liverpool will finish above us, yeah?
Oh, for sure. That's a win-win bet.
I think it maybe Will's underestimating how well Liverpool will do, perhaps. But he could be right because we don't know how well they're going to be firing with the new players in. I think Mane's going to be a massive loss for them. Has he gone yet, or is he? They're just talking about it still. Not sure. I think that you're right in saying it's the squad depth that's going to kill us. Without doubt, Romero's a great target to pick because, like, who is coming in there? It's Davinson Sanchez. If Romero's out for any length of time, Davinson Sanchez doing all those Champions League games. I don't see that going too well somehow. Might get away with it in a few league games, but when you're up against the top of the pile, no, it's not going to happen, is it? I think the likes of Dyer and Davis, both of them, I think I'd be okay with them on the bench, but we're going to be definitely relying on them to start games because we just do not have that strength in numbers there. We've got a lot of dross, and this is a problem, as we know. We've been harping on about it for ages. It's been built up over season, over many, many years. And we're at the point now where we're looking to have to replace like 15 players to get a full squad of players that are at a level we want. You can't do that in one window. So what our biggest downfall this coming season is going to be that squad depth. I totally agree. I think although I love saying about we're doing the quad and everything, when you put a bit of realism into it, there just isn't. You can't stretch that thin on four trophies with a squad like with our sort of squad. Up front, like you said, quite rightly, Dane Scarlett would be coming in if on the bench if Harry Kane's injured. Richarlison in. I think Richarlison's a good signing, but we need more than just that, don't we? We need the what happens if Son's out? What happens if Kulusevski's out? It all matters. Every single one of them matters. If there's nobody to cover them, we are stretched, threadbare thin again. It's just not happening. But I'm still confident. Well, am I confident now? The longer it goes on, the less confident I am. My big thing about saying, we can push for the league this season was the provision that we are going to be signing 3 or 4 more players. I'm not looking to infuse. No, that's not too optimistically about that at the moment. It feels like the reins are being pulled in, and we're making do with what we got now. I dearly hope I'm wrong, because this could be the difference between a really underwhelming window that's been promising to start with and a really, really good window.
That's the thing for me. I'm on the fence with it right now. 2 to 3 signings, a top centre. I'm not talking about another 18-year-old prospect. I'm talking a top centre half, a top wing back, and a top attacking midfielder. All of a sudden, my opinion's going to change.
Yeah.
But right now, where I look at it, this is what I don't think people like Jeffrey get. I don't think anyone's doubting the tactics that we can compete in one-off games. I'm not saying that. Kuva's not saying that. What we're talking about, Jeffrey, is the depth. Yeah? Madrid, City, Liverpool, Chelsea, these guys, before a big Champions League game, can go and rest 4 or 5 of their best players and bring in 4 or 5 very good footballers. If we rest 4 or 5 of our top players, we're bringing in Sanchez, Skip, Royal, Lucas. There's levels to this, and I'm just the word. I think people as well think, Kuva, that you can go out in one window, right, and then all of a sudden, all of these players are going to gel, and we're going to win a league in one window. I just don't think that a lot of
spirit. Let's end there. Nice one.
Huh?
That's the spirit. Let's end there.
Let's end there.
Yeah. We're going to go out and get all of these players, and it's all going to gel. That's fine. Optimistic. Let's go for it.
Look, I listen. I need to. For me as a fan, personally, I need to see something now where I was told that Paratici had 5 targets for every position. I'm still not seeing a centre back. I'm still not seeing an attacking any creativity. I'm looking at the right wing backs: Royal, Doherty, Lucas, Spence.
I'm not so worried about the Madison type player, the creative bit and through the middle, because it's always for me been about the wing backs this close season, this transfer window. I wanted to see 4 viable options, the interchangeable wing backs, and at the moment there's Perisic, who's undoubtedly class, and Jed Spence, who we're hoping is going to be class. He's exciting. He might well turn out to be great. But then after that, it's back to the same old lot that weren't good enough last season. Why are they going to be good enough this season?
Yeah, I don't.
Sessegnon, we don't even know if he's going to be good. He's injured so often.
I know he's not going to be good. He's such a poor player for me. But again, sorry, Jeffrey, the thing is, when you say our squad is stronger, I don't. I mean, is it? Is our squad? We're still. If Spence gets injured, we're still playing Emerson Royale. If Perisic gets injured, we're still playing Sessegnon. If Romero gets injured, we've got to go to Sanchez or Rodon. Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't see this squad that you do. Anyway, I am going to leave it there, or we could go on all night. Kuva, thank you very much as always. Sorry, just quickly, Tommy, I know it won't all be done in one window. My point is this. My point is that before we went out and got a Spence and a long lay on loan, yeah, and a Richarlison 60 million, go and get what you need to make the first team better in the first instance. Go and get that centre-back. Go and get that right wing-back. We seem to be doing it backwards. But listen, I've got to go. Kuva, much love to you. I'll chat to you very soon. We'll do something else. And thank you very much. Everyone in the chat, thank you for all your super chats, especially Ellie and Tom. Much love to you all. I might do a Tottenham show tomorrow before the Rangers game. Not sure if I can be bothered. If not, much love. See you later. Take care.
Cheers.